My JNMIL tried to control my marriage, so I cut her out completely. Welcome to /regrets, like and subscribe for more stories, enjoy. Time to diagnose MIL as a JN. When I first met my MIL, she was all smiles and warmth. She told me she was so happy her son had finally found someone who could handle his quirks, which I took as a strange but harmless compliment. My husband and I dated for years before marrying, and during that time MIL played the role of the sweet, doting mother-in-law. She hosted Sunday lunches, offered to babysit my niece and nephew, and seemed genuinely happy for us. That facade cracked the moment I got pregnant with our first child. It started with her insisting she be in the delivery room because it's a family moment, even after I told her I wanted only my husband there. She sulked for weeks when I said no, and the morning I went into labor, she coincidentally showed up at the hospital and camped out in the hallway. My husband had to tell the nurse to keep her out. When our daughter was born, MIL immediately began referring to her as my baby, which at first I brushed off. But then she started acting like my boundaries were personal attacks. She would show up unannounced at our house, holding bags of baby clothes she'd bought without asking what we needed, then pout if I didn't dress the baby in them right away. Things escalated when my daughter was about 18 months old. MIL started asking to take her out, just the two of us, claiming that my daughter wouldn't bond with her otherwise. I politely declined, saying she was too young, and offered for MIL to spend time with her at our house. That wasn't enough. She began making snide remarks about how overprotective I was, telling anyone who'd listen that I was keeping her granddaughter prisoner. One afternoon, she came over while my husband was at work. I was making lunch in the kitchen when I realized the house was suddenly too quiet. I walked into the living room and my daughter was gone, along with MIL's coat and handbag. I called her immediately, and she casually said, "Oh, we just went for a walk to the park. You were busy, and she wanted to go outside." I told her to come back immediately. When she arrived, she rolled her eyes and told me I needed to loosen my grip before my daughter grew up scared of the world. When my second child was born, the behavior got worse. She started comparing the girls constantly, saying the younger one was more adventurous and less needy, clearly implying she liked her more. At a family barbecue, when my eldest didn't want to give her a hug, she loudly announced, "That's fine, I've got the fun one now," in front of everyone. My jaw nearly hit the ground. Recently, FIL's health has been declining, and my husband has been spending more time helping at their house. MIL has been using this as an excuse to corner him about letting her take the kids alone. She told him I was isolating them, that they were too attached to their mother, and even suggested I was harming their social development. When he defended me, she flipped it around, saying, "You've changed since you met her. She's controlling you." 2 weeks ago was the breaking point. We had agreed to meet her for lunch so she could see the kids. The night before, she texted saying she also wanted to take my eldest to her friend's farm afterward. My husband said no, reminding her we'd agreed on lunch only. She exploded. She accused me of hoarding the children and claimed everyone in the family could see how clingy they were around me. Then she sent a final message, "I don't want to see OP again. You can bring the girls without her." When my husband showed me the texts, I felt this cold clarity settle over me. This wasn't about bonding. It wasn't even about the kids. It was about control. She can't stand that I won't hand over my children on her terms, and she resents me for not playing the role of the submissive daughter-in-law. I've now blocked her on social media, left the small family group chat, and told my husband that any future visits will be on my terms, with me present. He's supportive in words, but I can see him struggling. This is his mother, and she's been manipulating him his whole life. But I refuse to be bullied into giving her unsupervised access to my kids just to keep the peace. She had every opportunity to have a healthy relationship with me and the children. Instead, she chose to undermine me, insult me, and cross boundaries over and over. And now, she's shocked that I don't want her in my home without strict conditions. I'm not ready to go full no contact yet because of FIL's situation, but I am done with pretending we're fine. If she can't respect me as my children's mother, she doesn't get the privilege of being their grandmother on her terms. After I left the family group chat, things went quiet for about a week. I foolishly thought maybe MIL had gotten the message. But of course, silence with her isn't peace, it's the calm before the storm. The storm came in the form of a Sunday morning ambush. My husband had gone to his parents' house early to help with FIL's care. Around 10 a.m., I heard a car pull into our driveway. When I peeked out the window, there she was, standing at the bottom of our porch with a gift bag in one hand and her phone in the other. I didn't open the door. She knocked, called my name, and then, unbelievably, walked around to the back of the house and tried the sliding door. Thankfully, it was locked. I called my husband immediately and told him to get her out of here. 10 minutes later, she was gone, but not before leaving the gift bag on the step with a note that said, "The girls deserve to know both sides of the family, not just the one you approve of." That same afternoon, she sent my husband a barrage of texts accusing me of turning the children against her and poisoning them with my negative energy. She even threw in a jab about how I don't work and therefore have too much time to micromanage everything. The next blow-up came during FIL's birthday gathering a week later. I almost didn't go, but my husband begged me, saying it would mean a lot to his dad. We arrived, and I immediately noticed MIL trying to separate my eldest from me. She kept calling her over, offering sweets, promising to show her something special in the kitchen. Each time, my daughter looked to me first, which clearly enraged her. At one point, MIL loudly said, "You don't have to ask mommy for permission for everything. You're at grandma's house now, you can do what you want." That was it for me. I walked over, took my daughter's hand, and said, "In this family, we ask before we wander off, no matter where we are." MIL gave me a tight, fake smile in front of everyone, but I could see the rage in her eyes. That night, my husband got another long message accusing me of embarrassing her in her own home and undermining her authority as a grandmother. She ended it with, "If you ever have a marriage problem, don't come crying to me. You've chosen your side." Then came the real kicker. 3 days later, my husband got a call from his sister saying MIL had serious concerns about the children's upbringing and was thinking of calling child services. When he asked her what exactly her concerns were, she rattled off nonsense, that I keep the dog outside when guests are over, that I'm too strict about sugar, that I make the kids hold my hand in parking lots. All normal parenting decisions, but in her mind, they were evidence of over-control and emotional harm. That was the moment my husband finally snapped. He told her if she even thought about calling CPS with false accusations, she'd be out of our lives permanently. She backtracked, claimed she didn't mean it that way, and that she was just venting to her daughter. But we both knew the truth, she was testing the waters to see how far she could push. Now, we're in a strange limbo. I don't initiate contact, and she hasn't shown up at the house again, but she still sends my husband random updates about the weather, her garden, or the horse she's obsessed with, just to keep a foot in the door. I told him he can respond to whatever he wants, but I'm out. I've started documenting everything, every text, every visit, every time she tries to manipulate or undermine me, because I can feel it in my gut, there's going to be a breaking point soon. And when it comes, I want to be ready, with a record of exactly who she is and what she's done. My husband says he's done with her games, but I can see he still holds on to the hope that one day she'll go back to being the good mom he thought she was before I came along. I've had to gently remind him that woman never existed, she was just wearing a mask. And the mask has been off for a long time now. So for now, I gray rock. I protect my kids. And I wait for the day she gives me the perfect excuse to cut her off for good. Because if there's one thing I've learned with women like her, it's that the drama always comes back around. The breaking point came faster than I expected. It was FIL's retirement party, a big deal for the family, and probably the last major event he'd attend before his health took a turn. My husband and I debated whether we should go, but he insisted we couldn't miss it for his father's sake. I agreed, but with one rule, the kids would stay glued to us the entire time. No disappearing acts. From the moment we arrived, I could feel MIL's eyes on me. She was dressed to the nines, acting like the queen of the evening, and made a big show of hugging everyone, except me. She gave me a cold glance, then immediately bent down to scoop up my youngest and walk off without asking. My husband intercepted her, and I swear the way she looked at me in that moment could have curdled milk. Halfway through the evening, she pulled my husband aside. I saw her whispering furiously, glancing in my direction, and I could tell by his expression that it wasn't friendly. Later, he told me she'd said, "I don't know how you live with her. She's making this family impossible to be around." But she wasn't done, oh no. When it was time for speeches, MIL took the microphone. At first, it was all about FIL, his career, his dedication, the sacrifices he'd made. Then, in front of the entire extended family and several of FIL's old colleagues, she turned the speech into a personal attack. And of course, she said, smiling sweetly, "We can only hope that our grandchildren will grow up remembering their real family, the ones who love them enough to give them freedom and let them experience life." Not everyone understands that, unfortunately. A few polite laughs rippled through the crowd, but most people just shifted uncomfortably. She wasn't even subtle, everyone knew who she was talking about. My heart was pounding, but I kept my face neutral. My kids were sitting with me, and I wasn't going to let her see me flinch. After the speeches, she came up to our table, leaned down so only I could hear, and hissed, "You don't belong here. You've been a mistake from day one." That was it. I stood up, loud enough for the nearest tables to hear, and said, "If you ever speak to me like that again, you will never see your grandchildren. Ever. Consider this your only warning." The room went dead silent. MIL tried to fake a laugh, saying, "Oh, she's joking," but nobody bought it. My husband was by my side in an instant, telling his mother to sit down and keep her mouth shut. We left shortly after, without saying goodbye. On the way home, my husband apologized over and over, and for the first time, I could tell he finally understood there was no fixing this. He'd seen her unfiltered, no excuses, no manipulation behind closed doors. Just the raw, petty cruelty she'd been hiding from him for years. The next morning, we both agreed, no more visits without both of us present, no more group chats, no more access to our home without an explicit invitation. MIL texted him that afternoon saying I'd ruined the party and that everyone saw how aggressive I was. He didn't reply. It's been 3 weeks now. She hasn't seen the kids, hasn't set foot near our house, and for once, she's the one stewing in silence. I know it won't last, women like her always come back for another round, but next time, I'll be ready. Because the truth is, she's already lost. Not just her fantasy of controlling my kids, but the image she worked so hard to maintain. That mask she wore for so many years? It shattered in front of her entire family that night. And there's no putting it back together. After that disastrous family lunch, I honestly thought I'd seen the worst of my MIL's behavior. But apparently, she considered that incident just the opening act. Over the next few weeks, she escalated in ways that made me question whether she was actively trying to destroy my marriage or if she genuinely believed she was some sort of queen whose authority I was supposed to obey. She started showing up at our house uninvited, usually during dinner, with the excuse that she was in the neighborhood. One night, she even brought her own set of keys, which we never gave her, and let herself in while we were upstairs. I came down to find her rearranging my kitchen cabinets because they were a mess. When I confronted her about the keys, she smirked and said my husband had given them to her for emergencies. My husband swore he didn't, but she just smiled like she knew she'd won. It got worse when she began inserting herself into our financial decisions. I caught her going through our mail, opening envelopes addressed to me, and then questioning my purchases. She even called my bank pretending to be me, trying to get information about our joint account. Thankfully, the bank employee asked security questions she couldn't answer, but the fact she even tried shook me to my core. When I told my husband, he confronted her, and she cried, claiming she was just worried we might be in debt and wanted to help. The final straw came when I discovered she had been speaking to my boss behind my back. Apparently, she thought my job was too demanding and was hurting my ability to be a good wife. She called my office pretending to be a concerned family member and tried to convince them to lighten my workload or even transfer me to a different department. My boss called me in, confused and slightly amused, but I was humiliated. It wasn't just intrusive, it was sabotage. That night, I told my husband that this had crossed the line into dangerous territory. He agreed, finally realizing his mother wasn't just overly caring but manipulative and controlling. We changed the locks, blocked her on everything, and set up strict boundaries. Predictably, she reacted by showing up at our doorstep, pounding on the door, screaming about how I'd poisoned her son against her. The neighbors came out to watch, and I stood there, silent, behind the locked door, until she eventually left. She hasn't been back since, but I know she's plotting something. The thing about women like her is, they don't give up, they just wait for their next move. And when it comes, I'll be ready. So what you think? What would you have done in their place? Share, like and subscribe for more stories like this one.